Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty significant in national security. It's a newly issued presidential order called the National Missile Defense Shield Order.
That's right.
Think of it like a strategic roadmap, how the U.S. plans to protect itself from, well, a whole range of aerial threats that seem to be growing.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a minor update.
So our goal here is to get past the official language, really understand what this order actually says, maybe why now, and what it could mean down the line. Especially for all of you trying to make sense of a world where tech and geopolitics are changing so fast.
And we're going straight to the source for the actual White House document.
Exactly. Pull out the key bits.
And like you said, this isn't just a small tweak. It really signals a pretty fundamental rethink of the strategic threats we're facing.
How so?
Well, for a long time, the main worry for missile defense here at home was, maybe less developed nations getting hold of something or an accidental launch.
Right, the rogue state scenario, kind of?
Exactly. But this new directive, it makes it really clear the assessment has shifted big time.
Okay, let's dig into that shift then. The order itself mentions President Reagan's ideas way back when, and also how things changed after the U.S. pulled out of the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty in 2002. The focus then was more limited, right?
It was focused on those rogue nations and accidental launches, like I said. But the language now, it says the threat has become more intense and complex over the last, 40 years or so.
Intense and complex. What does that actually mean in terms of capabilities? What's changed?
Well, what's really striking is that it explicitly says the threat isn't just from, countries with basic missile tech anymore. It points directly at advancements by peer and near-peer adversaries.
Okay, so we're talking major global powers here.
Yes, powers developing their own sophisticated air and missile defenses, plus more advanced ways to deliver attacks. Think things like highly maneuverable reentry vehicles, better countermeasures to fool defenses, integrated electronic warfare, stuff that makes detecting and intercepting much, much harder.
So it's not just more missiles. It's smarter, harder to stop threats.
That's the core of it. This whole new threat picture is really what's driving this new policy.
And the policy goal stated in the order is?
It's pretty clear. It aims for a next-generation missile defense shield. The goal is twofold: deter and defend against any foreign aerial attack on the U.S. homeland. And critically, also maintain a secure second strike capability. That's still key.
Okay, next generation. That sounds like more than just upgrading existing systems. What does this new approach actually involve?
Right, it's about building something more comprehensive. The implementation plan, which the Secretary of Defense needs to deliver within 60 days of January 27th, 2025, so pretty quick turnaround, outlines a multi-layered strategy.
Multi-layered?
Yeah, designed to tackle a much wider range of threats. What really stands out is the focus not just on traditional ballistic missiles, which we've worried about for decades, but also the growing challenge from hypersonic missiles, advanced cruise missiles, and, other advanced aerial attacks.
Hypersonic and cruise missiles specifically mentioned.
Yes. And that means you need defenses working at different altitudes, different phases of a weapon's flight. It's much more complex.
Okay, and the order gets specific about some technologies to fast-track within that 60-day plan. Let's start with the accelerated deployment of the hypersonic and ballistic tracking space sensor layer. Why space-based tracking for these?
Well, hypersonic weapons, and even some advanced ballistic ones, are just incredibly fast and can maneuver unpredictably. Ground-based radar has limitations, like the horizon.
Right.
So putting a tracking layer in space gives you this persistent global view. It's like having eyes overhead constantly. This allows for much earlier detection, and you get more precise tracking data, which is absolutely crucial if you actually want a chance to intercept these things.
So it buys you time and better information.
Essentially, yes. Expands the warning window and improves targeting.
Then there's this phrase, proliferated space-based interceptors for boost phase intercept. That sounds ambitious. Hitting them right after launch.
It is ambitious and a significant shift. Boost phase intercept means trying to destroy a missile while it's still climbing, just after launch.
Why is that better?
Because at that point, the missile is usually bigger, slower, hotter. It hasn't deployed decoys or multiple warheads yet. It's, in theory, an easier target.
But technically very hard to achieve, I imagine.
Extremely hard. The window of opportunity is very short, and you need interceptors positioned correctly. The term proliferated here likely means not just a few big, complex interceptors, but lots of smaller ones spread out in orbit.
Like a distributed network.
Exactly. Which gives you better coverage, more chances to be in the right place at the right time, and makes the whole system more resilient, harder to take out.
Okay, the order also talks about underlayer and terminal phase intercept capabilities, specifically to counter a counter-value attack. Can you break down those terms for us? What's a counter-value attack?
Sure. So, broadly speaking, military targeting is often divided into counterforce, hitting military targets, like missile silos or command centers, and countervalue. Countervalue usually means targeting things the adversary values, which often implies civilian population centers or critical economic infrastructure. It's grim stuff, but it's part of strategic thinking.
Got it. And the underlayer and terminal phase defenses.
Those are basically your last chances to intercept something. Terminal phase interceptors, like THAAD or Patriot to some extent, try to hit the incoming warhead in the final moments before it reaches its target. The underlayer probably refers to defenses operating at lower altitudes, maybe against cruise missiles or warheads that get through higher layers.
And the order specifically tasks identifying priority locations to defend against this kind of attack.
Yes, in cooperation with Strategic Command and Northern Command, it really underscores how seriously they're taking the possibility of needing to defend against attacks aimed at cities or infrastructure.
It also mentions defeating attacks before launch and during boost phase, which we touched on, but also non-kinetic capabilities. What does that involve?
Defeating missiles before launch is tricky territory. It could mean better intelligence, maybe cyber attacks to disrupt launch systems or other proactive measures. The order isn't specific there.
Understandably.
Non-kinetic means ways to disable or destroy a threat without physically hitting it with an explosive. Think high-powered microwaves to fry electronics, or maybe directed energy weapons lasers, essentially to damage or destroy the missile or warhead.
So energy weapons in cyber.
Potentially, yes. And developing a custody layer within what they call the proliferated warfighter space architecture. That sounds like the communication and data network needed to track threats continuously and coordinate all these different systems, kinetic and non-kinetic.
Wow. Okay, the complexity is immense, and the order calls for a secure supply chain for everything. That seems critical.
Absolutely non-negotiable, really. For systems this advanced and vital, you cannot afford vulnerabilities in the supply chain. Adversaries would definitely target that. So advanced security features, vetting suppliers, that's going to be a huge piece of this.
And it's not just tech. There's a mandate to review the Defense Department structure to speed up deployment.
Yeah, that's interesting. It suggests they recognize that the current bureaucracy might not be agile enough for this kind of rapid development and fielding they're calling for.
Streamlining needed.
Definitely. Getting these things designed, built, and deployed quickly often runs into organizational hurdles, not just technical ones.
And the elephant in the room, cost.
A joint funding plan is required for the FY26 budget. This won't be cheap.
Not even close. This kind of comprehensive next-gen shield implies massive investment over many years. Seeing how this gets funded, how it fits into the overall defense budget, what else might get squeezed, that will be very telling.
Lastly, the order doesn't just focus inward. It talks about allies and theater missile defense. Right, because these threats aren't just aimed at the U.S. homeland. A more robust U.S. defense posture can, in theory, also enhance allied security. So after the Homeland Plan, there's a review of theater missile defense protecting deployed troops and allies.
Looking for more cooperation.
Yes, enhancing cooperation on tech, capabilities, operations, and exploring ways to speed up getting U.S. missile defense systems to allies who need them. It acknowledges this is a shared problem.
Okay, so let's try to sum this up. We're seeing a major U.S. policy shift towards a much more advanced, multi-layered missile defense system, driven by worries about sophisticated threats from major powers, hypersonics, advanced cruise missiles, the works.
Exactly, and involving a whole suite of new tech.
Yeah.
Space-based sensors, space-based interceptors, boost phase capabilities, non-kinetic options, terminal defenses.
All underpinned by secure supply chains, organizational reform for speed, presumably huge funding, and closer work with allies.
That covers the key elements. It's a definitive move away from a more limited defense posture towards something far more comprehensive.
For those of you listening, this is obviously huge. Whether you're in a related industry, in the military, or just trying to follow global security, this signals major shifts in defense spending, technology development, potentially international relations. It could shape careers in engineering, cyber policy for years.
And it leaves us with some big questions to think about, doesn't it? I mean, Building something this complex and expensive,
Hmm.
what are the unintended consequences? Could it destabilize things? Maybe trigger an arms race?
Or are there other ways to achieve security?
Right. And what does this massive investment in defense really signal about how the U.S. sees the future of global security and its role in it? It's definitely something worth keeping an eye on and thinking critically about. A lot to process.